Hello, and welcome back to Holistic Hatha Yoga Podcast. I'm your host, Kelsey, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. It is just me, no interviews if you've been listening. I hope you've been enjoying those. I've had so much fun and so many synchronicities pop up with both of those episodes. But yeah, anyway, if you haven't given those a listen, go on back and try those out. They're just, yeah, I love the perspectives of both of those women. So, yeah, I hope this finds you well. I hope this finds you well. I did lots of yard work today, so it was really, really lovely. I absolutely loved it. I enjoy weeding in the gardens, which might be an unpopular opinion, but I find it to be very fun and therapeutic, and I enjoy to just do it barefoot also if possible. It really adds that kind of extra grounding factor in there. So if you haven't tried gardening barefoot, I do highly recommend it. There's also studies that back this up. So not only do I think I feel better, I actually truly do feel better after walking barefoot on the earth, on the grass or soil, whatever. Um, because the earth has like natural ions, negative ions, I suppose, that attract our negative ions from our feet and things and help balance our energy and kind of neutralize our energy back to a normal state. So if you also are feeling a little bit frazzled or um, not grounded, that is a super easy way to get grounded quickly, is just go stand in some earth or go walk around in some earth barefoot. And extra points if you can get access to a stream. Moving water is amazing, amazing at moving energy. So it just carries it right along, and it's really absolutely quite amazing. So if you could even get to a stream and go put your feet in a stream and walk in a river or stand in a river, that can be very helpful as well. I've always been drawn to moving bodies of water or large bodies of water ever since I can remember. And I think it's a lot to do with just that healing aspect of it, and that water is a really great way on earth to connect with kind of the large energy that be, um, because of its flowing nature. And it reminds me actually of in when I was a child, and I think it's still there to this day. But my dad's brother, my uncle, um, he was a grape farmer in Pennsylvania, and I guess technically still is. But there was a creek or a little river that ran through the vineyard, and it there was a spot of the trail that ran over the creek, and there was a culvert type thing that allowed you to go over the river. However, there was also kind of a natural dam built in there, and they had placed an old bathtub within the river that was constantly getting flowed and overflowed and then into the rest of the river. And so as a child, we'd always go to that river, and we would um bathe, and not actually bathe, not with soap or anything, but we would just sit in that bathtub and just laugh and have the best time in that river. And it was freezing cold, but it was absolutely amazing and so much fun, and we were always so drawn to that bathtub. And as I got older, I remember just being like, I'm not getting in that bathtub. It's freezing cold. Like, how could you possibly do that? However, children are just so resilient. It's wild. With my own children, they are definitely the first to jump in some water that I might deem cold. And they are just like, it's warm, get in here. And it is quite amazing to see their resiliency. But anyway, so yeah, it was great to garden and do some yard work and get lots of grounding in today. That was definitely a lovely, lovely thing. But yeah, so today's episode, I wanted to talk about the Upanishads a little bit. I know we've talked about them before on this podcast, and I was just reading a little bit more. Actually, sitting under a tree, it was very lovely, while I waited for my son's soccer practice to um, do its thing. So I was reading this and I was like, wow, this is such a simple way to say such profound things. And I just really enjoyed the verbiage of all of it and the simplicity of all of it. And I wanted to share some of it here and kind of break some of it down. Not even break it down, but just talk about it in general. I will link this exact book that I'm reading from, the translation, but it is more or less just, it is a translation of the Upanishads into English. So this one is from the third Valley in the Katha Upanishads, and it's the third Valley in its entirety, more or less. And it talks about, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, that would be wild. But more or less, it talks about how the eternal, light within that is connected to all beings, they call this Brahman, that is the immortal. Um, and it says, in it, all worlds rest. Beyond it, no one ever passes. This indeed is that. So that's kind of how they're introducing Brahman or light or soul or source energy, universal consciousness, God, whatever you would like to call it. But it's basically saying it's like that internal thing within all. Um, and it continues to talk about kind of just the evolution of the soul and reincarnation and how to escape reincarnation through self-realization and realizing your true being, thus being able to move beyond this world. And so it talks about, it says, this whole world, whatever there is, having emerged, pulsates in prana, who is like a great terror, an upraised thunderbolt. They who know this become immortal. So not like a terror as in like bad, but like um it's saying like wherever in this world, if you're like emerging, having emerged, pulsating in prana, so basically coming into like a higher consciousness and like starting to like really understand it all, then your energy is like a thunderbolt, like just, and that's where it says a terror, but like not a terror, but just wild, bang, it's there, it is connected, and you now know this, and these are the people who then reach that no longer reincarnating part. And it goes on to say, if one can realize it in this life before the body breaks up, he is freed. If not, he will assume another body in one of the created worlds. So I find that to be a lovely translation also to say in one of the created worlds, not to say he will assume another body in the world, or in the created world. It is literally translated to in one of the created worlds. So that alludes to multi-dimensional worlds, basically, of different existences. And I find that to be very telling, especially with this timing of these writings. This is all BC and things, and all of these things were come to through or realized through meditation and understanding. So yes, let's move on. Um, and it gets very poetic in some of this, which is very lovely. But this it in this one it talks about it in oneself. It is seen as in a looking glass, and it goes on about some other things. But it is said that this verse is kind of where Lewis Carroll pulled through the looking glass with Alice in Wonderland, where it's actually a story of self-realization and consciousness, and you create what you manifest what you think of, and all the things. And it's said that Lewis Carroll also had read the Upanishads and was very familiar with them, and had gotten kind of the through the looking glass with this looking glass verse. So fun little tidbit sprinkled throughout history of how it's all kind of interconnected. Um, yes. And verse number 6 in the third volley. This one I find fairly simple and very important as well. Um, Knowing that the senses are distinct from the self, each sense with a separate origin, and that coming and going is in their nature, the wise man does not grieve. So again, just talking about how the senses fluctuate up and down, and that we are to not ever grieve that, because we just know that that's the nature. So if we understand that, why would we be going up in arms? So very simple Buddhist nature, honestly, to all of this. It goes on to say, beyond the senses is the mind. So basically, like, we can perceive the senses with our brain. And then higher than the mind is the intellect. So the intellect is kind of like our consciousness that's like observing the brain and making thoughts. And then above the intellect is the great self. So that higher self, that true essence being. And then I like this last verse, or this little last sentence. Higher than the great self is the unmanifest. So now we're talking about beyond what is this light, what is that, And it's like this is just the unmanifest energy, and basically everything can be within the unmanifest. So it goes on to say, and beyond the unmanifest is Purusha, all-pervading and without any distinctive feature. Knowing him, a person is set free and reaches immortality. His form is not within the range of vision. No one sees him with the eyes. With the heart, with the understanding, with the mind, he is seen. They who know this become immortal. When the five channels of knowledge are at rest, together with the mind, the intellect does not stir. They call that the highest state. So here we're talking directly about meditation in verse 10 when it says, when the five channels of knowledge are at rest. So the five channels of knowledge are talking about the five senses that we have. Together with the mind, so also with our mental chatter, and the intellect does not stir. So when we can get all five senses with the mind, with the intellect, all to calm the fuck down, to relax, to not stir, they call that the highest state. So that is a very, very, very simple way in, 4 simple lines of exactly what we're doing when we are meditating and exactly why it's important for us to be allowing ourselves to sit in silence for even 5 to 10 minutes a day, to just sit and allow those senses to at least lower. If we can't get them to completely not stir, fine. But if we can, we need to be able to bring them down. Bring them down so that we can reach this quote unquote highest state, which is like a very inner bliss state of utter, yeah, just light and connection. And you come out and you're just like, whoa, oh my goodness, okay, here we are. Let's go. It is quite exhilarating. So anyway, this is basically to just say also that these practices are so ancient and this human experience is so consistent that you can't not reach it when you do it and when you follow the guidance, and so it's quite amazing. Um, anyway, so verse 11, it goes on to say, the unwavering steadiness of the senses they understand as yoga. Then one becomes vigilant, for yoga can be gained and lost. So the original translation of yoga, yoga itself, the word, actually means union. So if we replace that here, the unwavering steadiness of the senses they understand as yoga. So like as union. Then one becomes vigilant, for yoga can be gained and lost. For union can be gained and lost, So once you have that unwavering steadiness of the senses, and you have this whole union of the entire body with the cosmic light, basically, and truly just in alignment on all levels, um, you you want to be vigilant after that experience because you understand that that can also, it can be gained and it can be lost, um, and this comes into our yoga practice like really easily. If we are doing, if you're not doing certain physical things, even just as simple as just forward folds, just bending over and touching your toes every couple days, you will notice a difference if you're not. And hopefully you're doing that every day. But if we're not doing it every day, whatever, let's try to like maybe try it once a week, to stretch, um, stretch the body a little. Um, because it's not that once you do it, you can do it forever and you've learned it and it's good and it's there. It's like, it's a constant thing. You must come back to it and practice it so that that muscle, yes, you have the muscle memory, but it doesn't mean that you don't, it's not easy or hard, it gets harder if you're not practicing it. And so that's basically what it's saying here is that if you're not staying vigilant, if you're not practicing it, it can be hard or it can be easy to lose that union of self. And then you're back in this like wild state of like living this ego driven human animal 3D body time, like linear timeline life, instead of stepping back into your present power and joining that union within moving from a very steady and peaceful state and moving with like the guidance of the divine light with you. So yes, I found that to be a really simple way to just say that, yeah, like just the unwavering steadiness of the senses coming to this union and experiencing that and like moving from that place. Um, so yeah, um, it goes on to have a few, there's obviously quite a few verses. Like I said, we're not going to be reading all of them here. So I'll skip a few here, but on to number 14, it talks about when all the desires that cling to the heart fall away, then a mortal becomes immortal and realizes Brahman in this very life. So again, this is like, I feel like we were talking about that Buddhist ancient wisdom in one of my past episodes where we're talking about that clinging and that needing to let go and that the clinging is never going to help us find the clinging to desires is never going to really help us move forward, not to deny our desires, but also to not keep, if you're fine, basically what I'm saying is that if you have desires, go for it, do it, attain it, whatever. You have the calling for a reason. Obviously not every desire. Don't go for all of them because that would probably lead to a really manic life. But whatever, the true calling ones. However, if you come to a state where you are becoming desireless, where you do not have a desire, and you are trying to dig up a desire because you are like, well, I always have a desire, so what is this? Why am I desireless? I usually want, more, whether it be more money or a, a better relationship or more luxury or more material items or more travel or more vacations or more whatever. Um, if you have come to a point where you're no longer, yeah, desiring, that is okay. That's an okay thing. You can't, desires are meant to eventually fall away. And that's kind of part of the fun of the human experience is having those desires and chasing them and attaining them and getting them. And then also like realizing, whoa, I didn't really need all of the things or all of this or all of that or blah, blah, blah to be really happy. That always literally lived inside me. And as corny as that sounds, but like it's so true how little you actually need um to get by on a day-to-day basis when we think we need all of these things and all of these, bigger houses and larger spaces and more privacy and da da da. And it's like, whoa, we can calm down and like live in a little bit of a community, if you need, if you feel the need. But anyway, I digress. I digress. But anyway, as I was saying it, if you're finding yourself becoming desireless, let that be. Experience that, and see where that takes you. I'm not saying burn your life down, but um, do what you need to do. Um, serve, like always be in love and service to others and to your community and to your family and to your friends. And other than that, what more shall we desire? Um, you know, growing up as a kid, my parents had lots of parties and things where they would be playing euchre, and euchre is like a card game, and all sorts of other games, card games and things. And my family get-togethers all had that as well. And as an adult now myself, I'm looking around at all my friends. I'm like, no one's having parties with just people having fun playing card games. Like, that's just for fun. That's just free entertainment, free fun, and people nowadays, it almost seems like everyone's like too individualized or too wrapped up in their own shit to be able to all just hang out and have a card game day, let alone like to have a group of friends hang out. I'm like, oh my gosh, how cool were you guys to have a whole group of friends? Maybe I'm just the crazy like mom over here with three kiddos, and I'm like, how do you even have time for friends? But no, I think that's a lovely thing, and I think we need to invite more of that, more of those kind of free hobbies where you're just really connecting with others, and talking and laughing and having a good time. Maybe a community member's a musician and is playing their guitar or ukulele or something in the corner. It's just so fun when you let people just be people and enjoy. So um it can be really beautiful what does flower when we become desireless, and we think, oh my gosh, if we're desireless, it's going to be such a dull and terrible life. And it's like, no, it's actually the exact opposite. It's full and it's abundant, and it brings you absolutely everything you need exactly when you need it. And it's just gorgeous. So yeah. Anyway, moving on to number 15. We're still in that third valley, the 15th verse. When all the knots of the heart are severed here on earth, then a mortal becomes immortal. That is the complete teaching. So that again kind of just ponies right off of what we were talking about. Um, when you've untied all the knots of the heart and everything's severed, that's the complete teaching. Like, that is what we're here to learn, and that's it. You're done, son. Congratulations, you've reached graduation day. You are now good to go. And so, um, yeah, and it goes on a little bit like, this is reaching towards the end, but um, I just think it's so beautiful how simple this is, how simply written this book is. Like I said, I will tag it in the show notes, but it's just the Upanishads, the version by Vernon Katz and Thomas Edgens. Edgens? I don't know how to say that. I'm probably butchering it, but yes, I will tag it. I don't know why I keep saying tag it. I mean link it, but whatever. I'm not very techy, as you can probably guess. Anyway, um, so yeah, I just appreciate how simple it is. Just being like, oh, and that's the complete teaching done. Um, and this has much more in the book. This is not the end, trust me. However, I find others like some other spiritual scriptures to be quite wild or cryptic and just interesting. And so it's like, wow, okay, this is just so simple, straightforward, right to the point. No crazy wild story that I have to cut through and like find the meaning of. It's like, no, we can just tell you this, and no harm, no foul. Let's just move on, my friends. So anyway, um, it kind of we're almost done here, and so I've got just a couple more that I wanted to share with you. And like I said, they're all very simple, just like the ones that have been here. So, number 16, it says, 101 are the channels of the heart. Of these, one extends to the crown of the head. Rising upward by that, one reaches immortality. The rest, at the time of departing, lead in other directions. So, I found this very important to share because this is what we've been talking about as well when we talk about in yoga, when we are taking the energy from. This is exactly what we're talking about when we say that we're taking the energy from our root chakra up through our energy centers to the crown chakra. Like, this is exactly what we're talking about when we're doing this so that we have that clear channel. And so I found it fun that they talked about 101 channels of the heart. So then the 100 leading in other directions are basically reincarnations that you could take. So it's like so many other paths, essentially, is what they're saying, that you can take when you depart, meaning when your soul departs this body, moving into the next one. So that is why they established that clear channel during our living time, so that at the time of departure, we know the clear shot of where to go. So then verse 17 kind of defines the inner self. And so I thought I'd share that with you guys because I found it to be pretty interesting as well. But it says, the size of a thumb, Purusha, the inner self, is ever seated deep in the hearts of men. Him one should draw out from one's body with steadiness, like the central stalk from a blade of munja grass. Him one should know as the pure, the immortal. Yes, one should know him as the pure, the immortal. So they describe it as, again, size of the thumb, seated at the heart. A lot of other ancient civilizations described source sitting at the heart. So I find that to be fun, that throughout humanity, we can all kind of agree that we do feel this, like if we really think about it and we're like, where is our inner self? We could all probably close our eyes and we would all end up with our hand on our heart. You know, our pineal gland is very, very important and amazing, and I do feel like there's some amazing consciousness seated there, but there's something special about our heart, and I find it just nice that it's also highlighted there. And then this is the very end of it, and it has this beautiful little prayer at the end, and I wanted to share that with you. But before the prayer, it says, it's basically wrapping this up, and it says, then Nachiketas, I probably butchered that name, I'm sorry, having received this knowledge taught by the Lord of Death, and also the entire way of yoga, having been freed from impurity, freed from death, attained Brahman. And so will any other who knows this teaching of the self. And then the little prayer that goes along with it says, let us be together, let us eat together, let us be vital together. Let us be radiating truth, radiating the light of life. Never shall we denounce anyone, never entertain negativity. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. And that is the end of that in that Vali. And from there it moves into the Prajna Upanishad. And I will have another episode with some of that knowledge later. But that wraps up and concludes our episode absolutely perfectly, I feel. Um, I love that prayer at the end. I'm going to do something very fun and beautiful with that, because it's just so beautiful and simple and powerful and non-denominational. Like, I love that. I love everything about that. It reminds me of a Red Hot Chili Peppers lyric where it says, "I'm consecrated, but I'm not devout." I've probably quoted that before, but consecrated simply means like seeing everything as sacred, and just being a part of a sacred world, but not devout, meaning like I'm not to any certain religion or philosophy or thing. Like I just understand we're all here and rocking and whatever, and there's been a lot of war and bloodshed over religion, so I'd rather just like take the road of the overall understanding of it all. But yeah, I find these ancient texts to be so beautiful and simple, but you have to remember they were simple. They were brought down to the most simplest of verses and things, because they were orally transmitted, and so they had to be easy to remember. It couldn't be some crazy Shakespeare monologue every single verse, um, because that would be too difficult to pass on from person to person. Um, so just the beauty of the oral tradition, and how uh, we can get very, especially in this technological world, we can try to get very fancy and high tech, and everything has to be operate like battery operated or internet operated or electricity operated or whatever, and it's like, what about just the simplicity of things that don't have to be plugged in, or just speaking words, oral tradition, telling stories, playing games, like I was speaking of earlier with card games and such. But um yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this episode of this highlight of this third volley of the Upanishads. I really loved reading it, and I had to share it with you guys. Like I said, I don't know how many times I've said the words simple and simplicity in this episode, but I just love it. I absolutely adore it. So, um, with that, what else do I have to tell you? I'm sure I've got some fun news. Oh, of course, this week I have my live, in person, well, not in person. By live, I mean like live online. Um, and I would love to see you there. And it is a 1 hour, and it might spill over a little bit. So maybe a 1 hour and 15 minutes tops. Um, Nervous system reset. And so it is called Quiet the Noise, and that it is essentially that. We are going to be spending an hour doing these wonderful practices. The extra 15 minutes, I say, that is just kind of so that you can zen out for 15 minutes afterwards, because you're probably going to need it. And so I'm doing that 1 p.m. Eastern time. If you can't make it live, you will have access to the recording. So if you want to save your seat and get with the recording and still do it, you are more than welcome to do that. So please do if you feel so inclined. We are essentially just taking 1 hour, and we are going to be doing some different breathing practices and some different meditation practices to bring our nervous system from a state of like overwhelm to a very calm, natural, centered state. Reaching this point of kind of like we're talking about in these verses, like that unified state where everything is just slowed right down, and we can really start to center and find that connection point with that soul, with that heart, with that inner self and move from a place of love and light and just that peaceful calm that comes when you reside in the present moment. So, yeah, I invite you to come to that. That is this Wednesday, June 3rd. So you can go to my website, holistichathayoga.com, and under courses, there's another tab that says Quiet the Noise. Click that and you can save your seat there. If you have any other questions on yoga, feel free to reach out. Reach out to my Instagram. I'm at Holistic Hatha Yoga there. That's probably the easiest way. Reach out in the DMs. I'm more than happy to help you along your journey. For meditations, I do have some guided audio meditations on my website. They're super, super affordable. They're like $4.99 a piece, and you download it to your phone and you can have it forever, use it forever. And essentially, it's an audio version of using a mala. So a mala is 108 beads, and you use that when you meditate using mantras, and you say your mantra 108 times, going around the whole mala. So if you do not have a mala and you are new to mantras, this is a great tool for you because it's still a mantra and it's done 108 times specifically. So you can just press play. It does the mantra 108 times and then you're done with your meditation. Both of the ones I have available, I have an Om one. That one is really great for just general meditation. And if you're just dipping your toes in, and Om is the sound, it's like the universal sound of the universe. So connects all beings, all things, and it really does help kind of tune your entire energy system. So that's a great one to just start with. And I also put the Ganesha mantra out there as well for you. So I love Ganesha. I have a special place in my heart for him. I actually have a special place on my arm for him. I have a large tattoo of Ganesha on my right arm. And Ganesha is the Lord of obstacles. He both removes and places obstacles for you and for your growth and for your highest good. And so we have to remember that although he's very famous for removing obstacles, he also does place them for our growth as well. We like to think that every obstacle is a bad thing and that it's something that's just terrible or something, but it's like, no, sometimes they're there for our own growth. So um, yeah, so we can always summon the energy of Ganesha if we are feeling overwhelmed by the obstacles in our life and we want to kind of summon the power within to be our own remover of obstacles and to do that for ourselves. So the Ganesh mantra is just, again, the Ganesh mantra repeated 108 times. And I absolutely love that one too. So again, both of those are about 10 minutes long. So it's not like these take 20, 30 minutes, an hour or something. 108 might sound like a long number, but it's truly not when it gets down to it. So, if that feels like it would be helpful for your own, meditation journey, by all means, those are also on my website as well under the courses page. So, with that, I believe that's all I have. Nope, not all I have. Never mind. I also, on my website, have a free guide for you. So if you have been wanting to dip your toes in a little bit deeper, didn't know where to start, I have a 7-day grounding reset guide. And so essentially, you just go to my website, go to the free guide, type in your email address, and then for 7 days, you get a little like 4 to 5 minute practice that gives you something to um, basically yogic practices, little yogic practices that are easy to build into your life. They're not another to do. They're all very, very, very simple. And they're all things that you can do, or not all of them, most of them though, are things that you can do while you're still living your life. So, yeah. So if you've been feeling, again, a little bit frazzled and you just want to have a couple extra tools in your tool belt, go there, go to holistichathayoga.com, go to the free guide, type in your email address, and then that will come to you. So that is all I have for you, my friends. I hope you have a great week. Happy Sunday. Have a sacred Sunday. Take the day to reset, to relax, to rejoice, to reconnect. All the good things. All the good things. All right. One light, one love. I'll talk to you next week. Bye.